Join me today as we talk about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobby, and today we're going to be talking about the latest Ghostbusters movie, Frozen Empire. Finally got around to watching this. It's been out for a few weeks now. Sarah and I actually went to go watch it. And there's a whole other funny story about some other things that happened that I'm not going to go into. By funny, I mean it's really not funny. But I'm going to stick to talking about the movie itself. Now, Jim and I just recorded the latest podcast. We finally were able to sync up and do that. And in it, since it will be releasing before this, unless I run into technical difficulties in the editor, I mentioned that I had not been to see the Ghostbusters movie yet. And about 2 hours after we recorded that, Sarah and I went to go watch the movie. So, very briefly, that was a true statement, but didn't take very long to become a not so true statement. So, I'll talk a little, non-spoiler, then I'll get into spoilers, and, we'll go from there. So, I had not watched any reviews for this because I didn't want to be spoiled, but I kind of got the impression from the titles, that a number of people weren't overly satisfied with the movie. And I don't know. I thought it was good. I thought Afterlife was a little bit better. But I don't think this is a slip on the same level as, say, between Ghostbusters 1 and 2, where, in hindsight, I realized Ghostbusters 2 isn't anywhere near as bad as I used to think it was upon repeated viewings. I think there's actually some subtle things there in the movie that people miss out on. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. No, I thought there were several good jokes, some good, a little bit of character growth, some story beats. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that we have basically all of the main characters from the last movie are in this one, and have all somehow found their way to New York. I did think that strained credulity just a little bit, since they were in the middle of Oklahoma, middle of nowhere. So I get the family moving back because presumably Winston, since now he's apparently a philanthropist, is putting them up. Okay, and they're carrying on the whole Ghostbuster thing. All right, fine. And then, but the unfortunately, I don't know everyone's names yet because I haven't watched these newer two movies, multiple times over the course of 40 years. So you have to forgive me here. But Finn Wolfhard's character, his girlfriend, she pops up and is just kind of like, yeah, so I'm here. And then the other guy who went by the name Podcast, he's there, basically claiming that he told his parents he's going to space camp. So, but he's working with Ray, and yeah. So we have. I think this is the first Ghostbusters sequel that, things are actually kind of functioning the way they're supposed to. Because in Ghostbusters 2, they were out of business because they got sued, and then in Afterlife, they're out of business. I don't remember the exact reason, but they're out of business. Here it starts off, they're catching ghosts, and they're still in business. They're still doing their thing. So kudos for not following the pattern. That was good. Now, unfortunately, it does follow the pattern of there's some big bad trying to, destroy the world. But at least it's not Gozer. And it's not Vigo, so it's new material and a whole new backstory and everything, and so that's nice. But again, I wish they would have kind of not gone with some world-ending calamity. But you've got the growing pains of the family now that they're in New York. You've got Paul Rudd, who's not really. I don't think he's married to the woman who is Egon's daughter. So he's not technically their stepdad, and he's in that weird position of, I'm here, but what role do you want me to play as far as the kids? And then of course there's then there's the mom and there's the kids, and within the original three that are still around, along with Janine. And this is, I'll save for spoiler. Yeah, so we get most of the recurring characters are all back, and like I said, it's definitely got its funny moments. We've got all kinds of psycho techno babble all over the place that's totally meaningless. Although they do kind of attempt to navigate within the fake science they have created for the movie, and they do expand upon a few things a little bit, and they do go down some different paths. So yeah, I think this one was definitely, I think they've come to realize what they're going to have to do to have future movies is they're going to have to kind of broaden the franchise a bit, and it went a way that Afterlife began, that they're going to have to come up with some things to explain some things, or they're going to run into an actual problematic moment. And I'll get to that here in the spoilers here in just a moment. But anyway, overall, like I said, I enjoyed it. I think it's worth a watch. I thought it was funny. I didn't think it was tired or anything like that. It might be a hair over long, but that's personal opinion. And given and people might have the issues might come up with stuff I'm going to talk about in the spoiler section. But again, I haven't seen the other reviews, so I don't know what people's actual problems with the movie are. I was concerned going in about the addition of people like Patton Oswalt and I can't think of the other guy's name, and I apologize, because it seems like they don't always bring something positive to the table. But in this case, Patton Oswalt was funny. He was a very limited role, and it's in such a way that I could see them coming back to it. He could definitely be kind of roped into future adventures, along with the other gentleman whose name I'm completely spacing. He was in The Eternals. He was the actor there in all the Bollywood movies. I wasn't super concerned about him because I do find him funny in a lot of things I see him in. But I didn't know what it meant as far as for the franchise. I thought we might end up with too many main character syndrome or something. But he's not a main character, but he's important to the plot. So yeah. That's most of it. I thought the effects for the most part looked good. The main villain has a definite different effect and look than the others because he's not a ghost. He's a god, and some things like that. The ghosts look fairly consistent. Slimer looked a little different, but I guess you got to change with the times. The proton beam effects all still look good, and it's a little bit of some advancements on some of those things. Those are kind of fun. And then some other ideas extrapolated from what they already had, which again, it's all technobabble, so they can do what they want with it. But it seemed to work for me. So anyway, like I said, I recommend a watch. If you want to wait till streaming, whatever. But I think it's worth a watch. I thought it was funny. So now into the spoiler zone. So, to me, the big potential issue is Phoebe, the genius girl. She becomes friends with the ghost, but the ghost is completely humanoid and can talk, and interact. and she's part of the evil god's plot to be released. So, but the problem is, like, this is a problem that dates back to the first movie, is that we don't have a 100% clear definition of what we're actually dealing with here. I know they're called Ghostbusters, and they keep saying they're ghosts, but why do we have perfectly humanoid, essentially exactly how they were in life, and how do we have Slimer? You know, how do we have the one in Afterlife that eats the metal? You know, these are clearly either something has happened to make them go from humanoid to that, you know, or they weren't ever human to begin with. In which case, what are they, extra dimensional entities like Gozer? Which is another thing. Like, Gozer's not even a ghost. You know, Gozer's a god. So we have a mangled thing that worked for the first movie. You know, because in the first movie, unless I'm misremembering, the only humanoid ghost is the one in the library, and even then, she floats. Like, clearly she's not human. Like, clearly she has changed in the afterlife. And then she has her alternate, you know, Hellraiser form. And speaking of which, we see her again because as the pitch meeting for the first Ghostbusters reminded me, they never did actually go back and catch her in the first movie. And even if they did, she'd have been released again whenever Gozer blew up the spirit trap. So, or not Gozer, it was Walter Peck. More on him in a moment. So, you have this difference in things, and then you have this difference in just entities altogether. You know, because again, Gozer's not even a ghost. So, the problem's going to become, or is there going to be someone that's going to eventually be like, hey guys, you know, if these ghosts were all human at one point, and clearly some of them are still humanoid and can talk and everything, and we go with the concept of they're here until they can move on, like, aren't we, like, just trapping them into an eternal hell of some kind by trapping them? Because they can't move on from there. You know? And, like, especially if we just do it indiscriminately. Like, should we actually be, like, concerned about some of these things? Like, what's the moral outlook on all this? And that's the kind of questions the movies don't need to be going into, because they're comedies. You know? Or they better have, like, a really good, like, yeah, if they're humanoid, we try to talk them out of it and try to get them to move on and everything, and then if they're a threat, you know, we deal with them. But the monstrous ones, they're just, like, too far gone or something. You know, like, there's got to be an answer if they're going to keep going down this road. And it kind of started there in the last one with Harold Ramis's character, because clearly he was a ghost, but also clearly he was on their side. So, you know, so that's a moral quandary the movies don't need, because they're lighthearted movies. They're not super serious. So they need to head that off at the pass if there's another movie. And then also, like I said, the fact this movie expands on a lot of things. Apparently Winston has been spending a lot of money at another facility in New York where they built a much, much larger ghost trap. And also they have the ability to take possessed objects and suck the ghost out of them and trap it. And they also have, like, observation rooms that are lined with the fields from the ghost traps, so the ghost can't get through. And so he's been spending a lot of money on research and development. So there's, you know, some interesting things could happen there. That's where, you know, we get a couple of new characters there, and Finn Wolfhard's character's girlfriend. That's where she's working. So, you know, there's potential there for expanding things. Although I imagine they'll want to stick with the firehouse just because it's iconic. Excuse me. And then, if you paid attention, and Ray also does a podcast now where people bring in supposedly haunted items, and he has a PKE meter and tests it. And if they're haunted, then he'll offer to buy them from them. And if not, Podcast smashes him with a giant mallet. And you find that out for the same time this woman does whenever she thinks this watch is haunted by her husband. And then it's not, and then just the mallet smashes it out of nowhere. And they're just kind of like, sorry, lady, the mallet gets the views. So, and as a YouTuber, I can sympathize. But you see all these items there, and they mention that Ray's bringing them to him. And so, it doesn't take much to put two and two together that Ray's whole operation is a front to try to find all these things to then give them to Winston's people to deal with. So you got that. And Venkman, he works for him too as a psychologist, and so he's got a few parts in there. And Janine's there at the firehouse a couple times, and then everyone's there at the end for the fight against the god. And yeah, so then the other gentleman, whose name I don't know, the guy from the Eternals, he is essentially like from a line of people that have like fire manipulation abilities, and this god is all about like freezing things. So they are ancient enemies. His people were the ones who entrapped the god originally in this brass sphere. I think it's brass, might have been bronze, but I think it's brass. So there's a history there, and they've got to kind of get him trained so he can try to help fight this thing. And they realize their regular proton packs don't do anything against it. So Phoebe kind of spiffs hers up a bit. And she's having to deal with the fact that the city's coming after them for, among other reasons, employing a 15-year-old. So violating child labor laws, and also the mayor's trying to get them shut down because the mayor is Walter Peck from the first movie. So yeah. And it is William Atherton, and when they go back to the library, there's some other cameos. When they go back to the library, it's still the same guy running the library that was there in the first movie, who is there whenever they're questioning the librarian that was attacked by the ghost librarian. And Patton Oswalt's character works there, and he's got the lowdown on some other things that have happened. Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's any other like spoilery stuff here that's worth mentioning. But there's a bunch of like inter-family drama because the mom tells Paul Rudd's character, she gives him because he's like, look, I don't know where we stand here, because we're not married. I'm not their adopted dad or anything. Like, so I don't want to be in a spot that you don't want me to be in, that I don't want to be in. And he's like, I don't want to be an asshole. And she's like, no, it's okay. You can be an asshole towards the kids, and or something like that. There's a joke in there where he's kind of like, oh, so I'm going to be an asshole towards your kids. He's like, yeah, that's what I said, of course. And so there is the moment where he does try to kind of lay down the law later on, and there's some kind of jokes leading up to it and after it, but it's a reasonably serious moment, and it works for the movie, and you get a whole lot of later on the reconciliatory, because Phoebe knows she screwed up by trusting the ghost, and the ghost feels bad because she likes Phoebe, but she's been dead for 80 years and she wants to be with her family on the other side, and they kind of discuss that the concept, like they don't know, none of them, they don't commit to what the other side actually is, which is probably for the best. Because if you don't go for mass appeal, you don't want to endorse any particular religion. And I think you kind of have to. So if you're going to commit to something beyond just saying that there is an afterlife, because even that conflicts with some religions. So it was probably for the best, because Phoebe tells her that, like, well, from a physics standpoint, you basically just kind of become one with the universe again. And the girl asks, like, well, have you ever seen this happen? She's like, yeah, I have once. And talking about the last movie. So, yeah. So, yeah. And also we find out that thanks to the device that can suck the ghost out of an object, it can also turn a person into a ghost temporarily by removing their, let's call it their soul, from their body temporarily. And Phoebe does that so she can understand what the other girl actually feels like. But yeah, so it's interesting, and you get a little bit of squabbling between Ray and Winston, because Ray takes the kids out on some things. Winston's like, Ray, what the hell are you thinking? Like, you could have got them killed, and it's a legitimate concern. I mean, what they were going into shouldn't have had any problems, because they were just going to research something at the library. They didn't anticipate something that had happened previously in the movie was going to follow them there. So it's kind of being overprotective, but at the same time, like, Winston's not wrong. What they do could get someone killed, and especially kids that are inexperienced, although the kids are kind of experienced at this point. So Winston's got legitimate concerns. Plus, he's worried about the public face of everything. And, it kind of gives Ray his whole, like, Ray, did you, this is supposed to be our golden years. And Ray's like, this is how I planned on spending my golden years. Like, this is what I want to do. So, yeah, so I think overall they're on a good trajectory if they want to continue the movies. Because they've got it to a point where they can have whoever the cast wants to come back. They've got newer people. They've got newer people. They've got an expanded circle now with like Patton Oswalt's character. They've got like Ray's podcast thing. There's other avenues. It's not just the core of people going out and catching ghosts. They're expanding ways they can take the story. And I think that's important. They just need to like tone down the world-ending threats. Maybe take some cues from the old cartoon and go with some of the extra dimensional threats and actually like pursue them into the other dimension. That could be something. Trying to think of I think he was literally the boogeyman. Yeah, like that would be an interesting villain if they modeled it after the cartoon villain and actually have to go like into the other dimension to fight him. Or, something that haunts people's dreams or something. It's not going to end the world, but like it's going to raise hell before they stop it, and it's going to be hard to stop. Things like that. Coming across random things that are haunted, but not world-ending calamity type hauntings. Just things like that. I think that they've got to dial it back, and I think they can. And it seemed, like I said, I thought the comedy was good in this one, so the writing seems to be pretty on point. But yeah, I think they're on the right track, so hopefully this movie does well enough if they plan on continuing. And hopefully, whoever wants to come back can come back. So, but yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. Definitely worth a watch. I recommend you folks watch it if you like the others. I suppose they could even, like I've mentioned it before, they could even try to bury the hatchet with the 2016 Ghostbusters and have cameos for the main actors from that movie if they're interested. Even have them as like a franchised Ghostbusters crew now that we have this expanded deal with Winston, and the movie ends with there still being ghosts around. So, and they added to the lore where Winston explains to him that the firehouse is essentially like the plug in the dam between our reality and whatever's on the other side because of what happened back in the first movie whenever the trap exploded and that giant blast of all those ghosts went up in the air. Well, that like tore a rift, and like so that's where it's gonna be. So add a little bit of that in there, and you've got excuses to take the movies any way you want to. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Let me know if you guys have seen it or if you haven't, if you intend to. Let me know down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It's YouTube. But otherwise, just remember, who you going to call?